Good Tuesday to you, my friends. You're probably wondering, wait, is this really the Tuesday tune-up? Because Rick doesn't normally dress like this for the Tuesday message. Did I miss something? No, you didn't. You are in fact correct. I don't normally vest for the Tuesday tune-up. It's usually a teaching opportunity, and this will be that. But I thought it appropriate this morning because our topic for today is the consecration of the first bishop of the Episcopal Church, Samuel Seabury. And so you're probably scratching your head going, okay, Rick, well, what could your tartan Fraser-plaid stole from Scotland have to do with the first bishop of the Episcopal Church? That's part of the story, as it were. Let me give you some background to begin. The churches in the British colonies, because America began as colonies of Great Britain, all of the churches were Church of England churches. And the priests who served all throughout the 13 colonies were subject to the orders of the Bishop of the Church of England from London. The Bishop of London was in charge of all the clergy in all the colonial territories throughout the world. And we were part of that. The Bishop of London, by the way, never once set foot on colonial soil, what we would call American soil, but that's another story. And then we had this little dust-up that you might recall. I think we called it the Revolutionary War. Yeah, you probably heard about that in some of your history classes. And we won, and we set ourselves apart from England and became a separate nation all unto ourselves. The Declaration of Independence happened, the Revolutionary War, and then the founding of our own system of government. And that brought with it some challenges for this new country of ours. A lot of social, a lot of political, a lot of bureaucratic, but one of them had to do with the church itself, and that was this. All of the clergy in the colonies, now the states of the new union, were part of the Church of England. And many of them had remained loyal to the British Crown, and many of them actually left and went back to Britain after the war. Okay, that's fine. Those who stayed wanted to become part of a new church to be affiliated with, but not necessarily the same as the Church of England. And that's what began something we like to call the Episcopal Church, or more appropriately, the Protestant Episcopal Church of the United States of America, which is one of our formal names. I can go into detail on the other ones, but they don't really matter for this particular conversation that we're having now. Okay, fine, so we've started our own church, and we have some clergy who have been ordained, and we're ready to go, but, there's a problem. You see, while ordained priests can do a lot of things, only ordained bishops can do certain things. For example, only bishops can ordain new clergy. So without bishops in the new Episcopal Church, we would not have the ability to sustain the church. For the existing clergy would retire or die, and there would be no new clergy coming up because we had no bishop to consecrate those or ordain those clergy members. So it was very clear from the outset that we needed a bishop or bishops. Literally, the word Episcopal comes from a Greek word episkopos, which means led by a bishop. Now you understand a bit of our conundrum. And so the new church, the Episcopal Church, got together, and the folks in Connecticut had a meeting and elected Samuel Seabury, a priest from the colonies, to become the first bishop of the Episcopal Church. In order to do that, though, he had to get on a ship and travel from America back to Britain, where he could be consecrated by 3 bishops. That's how we do this. It's important to maintain what we call apostolic succession. And what that means is this. Every clergy member, if they want to go through the challenge of it, can trace back the lineage of their ordination literally back to the hands of one of the apostles. It goes something like this. Peter made priests in churches and made bishops, and then those bishops that were created by Peter made other bishops, who made other bishops, who made other priests, and so on and so on and so on through the years. And ultimately then every priest, through the hands of the bishop that ordained them, can trace their lineage back to the actual apostles themselves. That's what the phrase apostolic succession means. Now, in order to create bishops in the first place, you need to have 3 bishops lay their hands on the bishop candidate and make them a bishop. That's how we make certain that we have protected and preserved apostolic succession. So, back to our friend Seabury. Seabury goes to Britain, and he has wonderful conversations with the folks in London who are very willing to consecrate him a bishop. They want to partner with their American cousins, and they want to do the right thing, but there's a problem. See, after a year of conversation back and forth between Seabury and the leaders of the Church of England, they've come to an impasse, and that impasse is this. All clergy in the Church of England have to swear allegiance to the head of the Church of England, the king. The king is the head of the Church of England. If you've ever wondered, Queen Elizabeth still retains the title head of the church and defender of the faith. It's sort of archaic, and it comes from olden days when the Pope actually bestowed that. That's a topic for a whole different live stream. But in order for clergy to be ordained in the Church of England, they have to swear allegiance to the crown, the king, or today, to the queen. Well, that was a problem for Seabury for, I would hope, obvious reasons. We had just fought a war about whether the king should be our head or not, and we decidedly said, no, we don't want the king. So that was a problem. And after a year, they'd come to this complete impasse, and it looked like the Episcopal Church was not going to move forward. If Seabury weren't able to be consecrated by other bishops, the Episcopal Church was going to be a one-generation event, and then it would die out. Enter the Scots. For the church in Scotland did not necessarily agree with nor pledge allegiance to the crown. And so Seabury ran into some of the bishops from the Scottish church who said, well, come to Aberdeen. We'll consecrate you as a bishop. We just want to make sure that what you American folks do for the Eucharist comports with what we believe and agree. And after conversation, Seabury and the Scottish bishops agreed. And on November 14th, 1784, in Aberdeen, Scotland, Samuel Seabury was consecrated as the first bishop of the Episcopal Church. That was huge, because that meant now the church had an ability to move forward. So when Seabury came back to the States, he could ordain new clergy. Now, we still needed a few other bishops, and now that we understood how things worked, other parts of the country elected other people as bishops. We sent 2 more folks back over to England. And interestingly, by the time the next couple of bishops went over to England, the Church of England had found a way to get over their issue and didn't require allegiance to the crown. So they were actually consecrated by the Church of England. But once we had 3 bishops in the Episcopal Church in the United States, we were off and running. And the church grew and flourished. And we've had our fits and starts, but the church today is alive and vibrant. And if anything, the tools that we have now at our disposal from COVID have given us even more reach than we had before. So, on November 14th, we celebrate the feast of Samuel Seabury, the first bishop of the Episcopal Church, and a very important linchpin in the creation of the church that we love so much. And so now, I think you probably understand why I have my Scottish stole on, to pay a little homage to our friends in Scotland for giving us the assist we needed to create the church that we have become this very day. All right, have a great rest of your day, my friends. God bless you, and please have a safe and happy Thanksgiving.